Let's get into some shite. All right, folks, welcome to the Out of Tune Podcast. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for just giving me a few minutes of your time. It's important. It's important for me to say thank you, and it's important to kind of reciprocate the giving. I give you thanks. You give me a little bit of your time. And I don't ask for money, right? I rarely ask for any kind of money. So hopefully you just kind of hang out, listen, maybe be entertained, hopefully entertained, learn some stuff. It's cold here in Atlanta. I woke up this morning. I had a little bit of coffee by my bed. I was drinking coffee before I went to bed last night. It's what I do. And woke up this morning. There was coffee in my cup. I thought, well, I'll try some of that. It was like icy, almost ice in it. Didn't have ice in it, but it almost did. So that's how cold it was. So we're still in those days. Sometimes, in February, it was really warm. It felt like it was going to be spring. I think it got close to 80 here. And then it's falling back again. And then soon, those temperatures, we just won't even see them anymore here where I am. Where you are, you might get snow all the way up into July or June, maybe. I know some people who do that. So that's the thing. You could choose where you want to live. You could choose what you want your climate to be. How you feeling out there? How you doing? How's everything been going for you? I'm serious. I want you to answer me. I'll sit here and wait while you answer. Oh, really? So that's what's been happening with you. Well, that's interesting. And how do you feel about that? Oh, I understand. We should do an entire podcast like that. We do have a listener line. I said I wouldn't mention it much, but I'll mention it occasionally. 678-348-0008 is the listener line, and you can call that line and say whatever you want. Just talk to me. It's a recording, but just talk to me. Say what you want. Give comments, give critiques, help me out. Give if you want to throw out a topic or two, or you just want to make a comment on anything that's going on. Then I'll put you on the air. I'll put you on, I say on the air, we're not really on the air. I'll put you on the recording. I'll put you on the podcast. How about that? I was sitting here and I found a grocery list on the podcast table. I don't know why I have a grocery list on the podcast table, but I do, and I'm kind of concerned about that night. We must not have had food because I don't know why it's up here. This is the grocery list: russet or Yukon Gold potatoes. I like that. Yeah. 1% milk, pint or quart, and fake bacon. That's what do we have? Potatoes, fake loaded baked potatoes. I believe that might be what we had that night. Or we didn't because the grocery list was up here and never got purchased. I got to stop doing that. All right. I hope you're feeling well. Listen, here's what I'm wondering. I was wondering this week. Do you think that things become less funny as you get older? And I'm not talking about the podcast. Oh, okay. I got the joke. No, just let's just say in general. Do you think things become, you laugh less? Do you think? Maybe, because here's what I think. I don't see a whole lot of really older people watching stand-up comedy. And I don't know the last time I saw an older person. And when I say older person, let's put it into the 80s and 90s. Sorry, for you people in the 80s or 90s, I'm not saying you're old. You're just older than the majority of the population. And you can also call the listener line and let me know if this is true, older people. Are things less funny? Do you just don't laugh as much? Are things, let me tell you, here's something. This is from my own experience. I remember I did comedy back in the 90s. I was doing stand-up, and I got booked into a church. And this was a big church in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I knew about the church. I knew it was a big church, so I thought, wow, there'll be a lot of people there. So that might be good. At the time, I was wanting to do church comedy. I wanted to do Christian comedy. That's right. People do aspire to that. And I wanted to do that. And so that was fine for me. I wanted to perform at this church. So I go there at the church, set up big crowd. I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. There's going to be a lot of people. It's going to be big laughs. So I do my stand-up, and it's like doing it for two people. There's like no one laughing. And I realize when I'm doing we're kind of in the middle of the show, I realize all of these people are really old. And again, I'm not going to say age, because when I say really old, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But they're seniors. They're advanced age. I'm the older than me. I'm a senior, I suppose. But no one laughed. So I was dying. I died through the whole performance. After it was over, I was like, I got to get out of here. And I mean, person after person came up to me and said, I loved it. It was so funny. I was like, really? Well, you didn't laugh. And I since then, I've thought a lot about it. Older people don't seem to laugh as much. Do you think that's true? I don't see a lot of older people just falling on the floor laughing. Maybe smiling, and I don't do it. I find as I get older, I don't find myself, and I've never been a huge laugher out loud. I'm always analyzing the joke whenever there's humor. In my head, I'm always thinking, why is it funny? What's making that funny? If they said like this way, would it be funny? So I'm like, because I'm a comedy person, so I kind of analyze it, and I don't spend a whole lot of time laughing at the joke. I always wanted to be like Robin Williams, where he would just like this big belly laugh anytime he found something funny. I just wasn't that person. But I find as I get older, I'm becoming less and less of that person. I'm laughing so much less. I laugh in my head. I don't laugh. Maybe it's just too much energy or something. I don't know. But you don't see a lot of older people going to stand up. You don't see a lot of people watching live comedy, sketch comedy, whatever, right? I feel like maybe older people like jokes and maybe kind of older body dad jokes kind of stuff. But one of the things this week that I had to kind of admit to myself, because I watched the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary. Did you watch that? The big Saturday Night Live thing? Saturday Night Live's been around since we all were kids. I mean, like I was a youngster, just a really youngster when Saturday Night Live came around. And so we've all kind of had that Saturday Night Live influence, right? And I think each one of us have our own favorite cast or our own favorite era. And a lot of people are just like, it's not funny anymore. I've gotten old and I don't laugh at things. So Saturday Night Live is no longer funny to me. But, if you kind of watch your generation that you think is funny, you'll laugh at that, right? So I don't know what my generation is. I know that I did watch it way back in the early days when they were making fun of Nixon and Gerald Ford, the original cast. But I think so much of that humor went over my head. It was political. I wasn't into politics at the time. And I think I was just barely a teenager, early teenager probably, when it came out. And so I think there were a lot of things I thought was funny. I think they did things on TV I didn't see on television much, so that was kind of cool. But I wouldn't say that I think it was hysterical, And so I watched this 50th anniversary show. It was entertaining, but what it did was it made me realize I don't think I'm a big Saturday Night Live fan. I love sketch comedy. I'm a big comedy fan, sketch comedy fan. Saturday Night Live, I would say I like maybe 5 or 6 seasons out of 50. That's not good percentage there. Right? What about you? Are you into it? Now, my wife loves it. She lays in bed watching Saturday Night Live sketches that go on now, and she's cracking up all night long. Which is fine. I think it's great. People could do something. They could enjoy it that much. I think I liked the years the one cast that had Dana Carvey and Phil Hartman and Mike Myers on. That was like a classic cast. I think artistically they were really, really, really good. And then that one season that had Billy Crystal, Christopher Guest, Martin Short, that they just did like one season with those guys, and man, that was brilliant. So those two are probably my favorite. Rest of it, every once in a while I'll see something funny, but it makes me wonder: is it because I'm getting old? Is it because I don't find it funny because I'm old? Is that it? Is that all it boils down to? I'm just wondering what when you think about what old people's humor is. Sorry, old people. It's always just corn pone. It's all, hee-haw humor. It's all just, I don't like to pull things out because people like it. But let's just say slapstick and stuff, right? Just stuff that's really lowbrow. I don't know, though. I like intellectual comedy. I love reading intellectual stuff. I guess I just don't laugh out loud much. Okay, so I don't know what the answer is. Things just stop being funny as you get older. I hope that's not the case. I need people listening to the podcast. Podcast is not that funny. All right, I know that. I've been told that. People actually send me letters and say, "Dude, your podcast is not funny." Like, okay, it's not always really supposed to be funny. Thanks for informing me, strange person. All right. Well, speaking of old and jokes, I did look up what the oldest joke ever in the history of the world. The oldest joke. What is it? And I'm going to read you the oldest joke. We'll see how that works. The oldest joke it had its origin in 1900 BC, which means 2,000 years before Jesus was born. This joke was going around, which means like someone probably told it to Jesus, and he was like, "Dude, that's an old joke." That's how old this joke is. Jesus thought it was old. All right, here's the joke. Now, this is a joke from the Sumerians, and they were from southern Iraq. It's Iraq now. It goes like this: something which has never occurred since time immemorial. A young woman did not fart in her husband's lap. As a fart joke. The Sumerians were doing fart jokes 2,000 years ago. And so here's the thing. There's jokes kind of like that now, right? It's a joke about how women deny that they farted. So 2,000 years before Christ, women were denying that they were farting. They're still doing it. And we're still telling jokes about it. All right, that's pretty good. It's not a belly laugher. I guess, Sumerians 2,000 years before Christ really found it funny. All right, so this is the oldest British joke. The oldest British joke dates back to the 10th century. And here it is. What hangs at a man's thigh and wants to poke the hole that it's often poked before? The answer is a key. You thought it was something else, didn't you? Yeah. See, the British were bawdy. They were talking about things hanging and poking and all that kind of stuff. So it just goes to show you that dirty jokes have been going on forever. The dirty jokes. Like, Bill Cosby, used to really give Eddie Murphy a hard time for doing dirty stuff. Hey, it's not Eddie. It was going on a long, long time before that. Richard Pryor, George Carlin. Who's doing it now? I don't know. Everybody's doing it now. But it's been going on since the history of time. Dirty jokes. They're probably, I don't even know what. So, like, if that's the earliest joke we know, then the earliest joke we know is a dirty one. There you go. I gotta, here's what I'm thinking now. We're not all of us, but most of us, we're all trying to create content, right? Want to put content out there onto Facebook, onto Instagram, onto whatever they're inventing over and over and over. We got to put more stuff on it. And if you're into business, like I am, so I have a podcast, so I need to be putting out podcasts almost as much as possible, right? I'm an artist. I need to put paintings online and drawings online. If you're a musician, you know what I'm talking about. You need to put music out there so people know that you exist. If you don't, it's almost like you don't exist if you don't put content out there. Content is like the thing everybody talks about. If you're a writer, you need to write stuff, put it out there. If you're a Sumerian, you need to put your dirty jokes online. People won't know that you're here. It's just like we're constantly now. I feel like the content is the important thing now. And we're just all throwing content out in public, and we get punished if we don't do it. Like your Facebook, if you don't constantly put posts on your Facebook, Facebook will stop showing your posts to anybody because they think, oh, this person's not interested. I'm not even going to put their posts out there. So you kind of get obsessed about it. It's like, well, I got to do it at least once a day. And then some people, several times an hour, right? So it's but it's just like content, more and more. Let's put more and more. And I get that pressure a lot. Not as much with the podcast, although I do feel the need to put a podcast out every week. I don't always make that, but I feel like I should because that's a schedule. And so what happens is, and I feel like this happens with all of the arts out there. When you start really thinking about putting just content out there, and the content itself becomes important and not what the content is, we just start getting a lot of junk. There just becomes a whole lot of stuff, a lot of noise. It's just all poor quality. It's there, but it's just a blob of something that we've thrown out there. I remember a quote from back when I was doing cartoons every week, and it would get really, really hard. And I remember reading Charles Schultz, who did Peanuts, said, it doesn't always have to be good. It just has to always be there. And that was true. You had to do it. You had a deadline. You had to put it out there. So you wanted it to be good, but if it couldn't be good, it still had to be there. And so that's kind of the environment that we're in now. And you think about that, everybody's putting out content now. It's not just Charles Schultz doing Peanuts. It's everybody doing everything from their own cartoons to songs to their own Facebook posts and trying to meet that content deadline, throwing it out there. We've become this giant landfill of just content. I don't know what we're going to do about it. I don't think anybody's going to pull back. In fact, I think we'll just do more and more, right? We're just going to be this big trash heap. I don't know. I guess it's one of those things that when you do get to a point where you're just like, this is not good. I love doing my podcast, but I have felt the need sometimes when I've just said, I got to put something out. I don't care how good it is. I just have to put something out. You know, you've listened to that episode. and I don't know, is that a good thing? Should I wait? Should we wait and do something that's really, really, really good? Or do we want to just get in line and make sure we have our content quota? I know what I feel is the right thing to do, but I just don't know if that's practical. It's not practical to kind of make, the algorithms or whatever leave you out because you're not feeding the content monster. So we just keep doing it. I don't know. I kind of feel the need to stop doing that. If I do take a break on my podcast sometimes, that's exactly why. It's just like, well, I could put a, crappy podcast out, or I could do something okay. I would rather do something that's pretty good than just like crappy. So I sometimes I just go, I'm not going to do anything today. Not going to do anything right now. All right. Maybe you'd rather I just do something. Maybe you'd rather I just quit. Don't tell me. All right. I'm going to sign off here in just a minute. I do want to say this. I think that one of the things that I find really disheartening is when we're learning, when we're discovering things. Well, we all know this. We all tend to just reinforce what we already know. We all just, and I feel like it's deeper than maybe we even think. Sometimes we just think it's about politics or spirituality or religions. It's like we'll only study, we'll only expose ourselves to things that we already believe, things that we already know. So rarely do you check into something outside your own political beliefs, right? Maybe you'll read a book, but let's just say you're a progressive person. You're not going to read some radical conservative's book. I didn't want to mention a name. You're not, probably. And vice versa. If you're conservative, you're not going to read, you're not going to read Al Franken. He's old, but still. So we tend to just kind of go along what we're used to, what's going to reinforce what we already think. But I started thinking about that, I feel like we do that even when we choose a career or when we choose what college to go to. I know that I went to a Baptist college. Now, I was raised Southern Baptist, and I did want, at one point, I wanted to be a minister, and so I went to a Baptist college. And then 3 months after I was there, I changed to theater. And I did, at one point, ponder changing colleges, but I stayed there. It's not like most of us, we wouldn't choose a college, let's just say I'll use the word secular. We don't have any religious beliefs at all. Most of us wouldn't choose to go to a Quaker college, if that's a fact, right? A lot of us wouldn't choose just to go to a college somewhere in another country where their ways, their religions, and their beliefs, everything is different from ours. We need for us to kind of all of our stuff to be reinforced, correct? That's sort of the way we choose now. I feel like that's a very dangerous thing. I don't know how we can stop it. I don't know if there's a way we can choose it, but I feel like that all of us need to look for ways that we can educate ourselves in ways that we're not reinforcing our own normal, regular ways of thinking. So I was thinking about this when I talked about, I don't remember, last week before, when I was mentioning how I kind of decided I was going to get into spiritual consulting. Because, I've been doing spiritual stuff my whole life. But there's a way to you listen to that and you could kind of say, oh, I know what that means. A lot of people immediately have a problem with it. A lot of people had a problem with it. A lot of people want to be like, yeah, really? Okay. When you start talking about spiritual stuff, when you start talking about political stuff, people already think they know what you're talking about. And I'm not saying I'm not saying I'm outside that. I think I'm just as much a part of it. If someone starts talking to me about, let's say, the Trump administration. Let's say they support the Trump administration. Well, they could say that, just that, and in my mind, I've already got them categorized. I already think I know what kind of person they are. I don't even have to listen to anything else they say. And it's the same way with spiritual stuff, because we've all been raised to think, especially when you're talking about spirituality, we've all been raised to kind of believe that this is what spirituality means, okay? Spirituality means God, right? It means church. It means behaving a certain way, believing a certain way. That's what most of us are taught and most of us believe. And even if you are a atheist, a non-believer, most people don't think outside of that God that they don't believe in. So they don't believe in a God, but they're still playing by the same rules as, let's say, the believer. And most atheists don't stop and go, oh, well, maybe it's just something completely outside of what someone else is talking about. So some people, like, if you say the word God, you'll freak people out. Some people get really freaky about it. And even if they don't get freaky about it, they're going to think, let's say that you're talking about God to people in a church. They're going to think you're talking about the God as the way they see it. Why? Because they've been educated to think only in terms of the way they've already thought. Always already thought. They don't stretch their mind. They haven't been able to stop and go, maybe it's something different. And when you're talking about God, especially when you're talking with people who don't believe, that's one of the first things they're going to do is challenge you on God. And that's totally fair. I think that's completely fair. And one of the reasons they do it is because people who have claimed to be spokespeople for God or represent God have really not, and really screwed it up, or just really not been able to do it well. But for me, when I think about spirituality, and I consider I would say, if somebody came up to me and said, what is spirituality? That would be fun, wouldn't it? Is like get about 5 people together and answer that question, what is spirituality? Because you'll get 5 different answers. And really the 5 different answers that you get would be based on what those people were taught their entire life. So I've come to a point, because I grew up pretty, I would say, standard evangelical Christian, Southern Baptist, East Tennessee, that kind of Christian. And it took a lifetime to get a lot of that stuff out of me. Not necessarily just for the sake of getting it out of me, but in order to kind of rethink the way I had always thought before. Look at things in a totally different way. Question things. Say, why is it that way? Couldn't it be this way? And so for me, when I answer the question, what is spirituality? I just say it's the essence. It's this is maybe a bad way of answering it, but I would just say it's the invisible of the visible. And that's controversial, I understand. But I like that, because spiritual is the essence. It's behind the scenes. It's what's going on behind it. So I see spirituality as just the study or the awareness of the invisible behind the visible. And I'm satisfied with that. But what does that mean? Because I think that to me is when I can just say, I would call that God. I would call the invisible behind the visible. I would call that God. But what is it? And that's the thing. Because if I'm saying God, you're going, no, that's where you lost me. There's no God. And then I'm going to say, well, when you say there's no God, what do you mean there's no God? Well, there's no white bearded man in the clouds. Are you kidding me? Okay, well, I didn't say that. And that's the thing. A lot of people don't believe in God, only have one God. They only have one idea of what God can be. And it's that character, that God character, that you either read in a holy book or somebody's trying to okay, that God doesn't exist. Let's agree on that. I've never seen him if he does. Her, whatever. But that doesn't mean there's no invisible. There's a lot of invisible. If you're a physicist, you're going to call it energy. Do you see energy? Physicists don't see energy. They can see the results of energy. They don't see energy. Why energy is invisible. If you're an artist, you call it inspiration. Inspiration creates art. It creates music. It creates everything that's created. It's inspiration. Can you see inspiration? I can't. I've gotten it. I felt it. It's given me answers. It's given me art. If you're a psychologist, you got the mind. Show me the mind. Bring it to me. But who says there's no such thing as the mind? I mean, the mind that's what a psychologist does. Studies the mind. It's invisible. If you're a biologist, you're studying life. What is life? Where is life? Show me life. You can't because it's invisible. If you're a theologian, you're calling it God. If you create a character of that, you got a problem. But if you're just talking about the invisible, God, life, mind, inspiration, energy, all that stuff, that's spirituality right there. And we all feel it. We all are affected by it. We don't know what it is. We haven't seen it. But that's spirituality. That's spirituality to me. I don't know. I'll let you debate it. All right. Hey, I've gone on way too long. Thanks for listening to my crap, though. It was a lot of fun hanging out with you and talking about invisible stuff. All right. I won't see you next week.